Welcome back. I almost said pure call there. A couple of quick updates before we get into today's episode. As you can probably see from the thumbnail, we have had a rebrand. I felt, I recorded the first 8 episodes. I sat with it a little bit and I realized that the title of my channel was the most apt and appropriate name for this video series. So we are now running with Faith and Logic. That's everything. That's the channel name, that's the show name, the podcast name. It will be the name on Spotify if you want to go and find it there as well. Anywhere you see me speaking like this, the title will be Faith and Logic from now on. And I think it just more neatly describes and speaks to exactly what we're doing here. Um, let's not spend too much time on that. It's a very small thing. We're only 8 episodes in, right? It's easy to change your mind and make such decisions, and correct yourself. So, as you can also see from today's thumbnail, today's episode is about honor. Honor is a very, well, it's a bit of an odd word. It's a word you probably don't hear used in modern day society, maybe as much as it was previously. I think honor in yesteryear, days gone by, had more prominence in society and probably medieval times, maybe. I mean, that's very far back. Not even that far. I think, generally speaking, honor had a much larger prominence, especially amongst men, probably, I would say, as far as how we had to go about our lives and live our lives in order to gain a certain status than it does today. That's for damn. So I felt it was a very important discussion to have because I think it plays into so many aspects of our society today, so many of the decisions we make, the way we choose to conduct ourselves. And as always, we will start at the top with the definition. What is honor? How do we define honor? And it's got kind of two definitions. It's got like I guess, noun applications and verb applications. So I'll give you those at the start. So honor, to hold in high regard, great esteem, or great respect. And this is more of the noun version, or I guess it's kind of the verb as well, but I'm dealing with it on the noun plane here. And that meaning, I guess, is more towards the type of thing you would give honor to. So, in that definition, I would say the most neat, um, well, other noun I could use to describe that is your parents. Your parents have some of your honor there. They are two people that you honor maybe more than anyone else in your entire life, by your actions, how you choose to conduct yourself, and all that stuff. A lot of it is to do with honor, right? You have great honor for your parents as they gave you life. That's one. And then we have the secondary one, which is more, well, it's right. It's the quality of knowing and doing what is morally right. Okay, and that goes into the sub meaning, which is the verb, which is to fulfill an obligation or keep an agreement. And I think those things there are really what we're going to be discussing today in a lot more detail. I think when you look at those terms, especially when the word moral or morally right is used, I think we are in a stage in history where honor's probably at its lowest core as far as how many people apply it to themselves on an everyday basis. I think a lot of people are just, a lot of people are good, but how many people do you know that are truly honorable? I think also that word has probably been largely replaced by integrity, which is also a great thing to have, right? We want to have integrity, and I think your integrity in reality is largely driven by your honor. How honorable are you? Are you an honorable person? Do you do what is morally right at every given turn? Obviously, that's very difficult to do, right? Because we live in a society where you can be made to feel like you're losing out if you're applying honor to every situation, because as you know, many people don't, and thus, there's an area of them having the upper hand if they don't have to use honor to deal with you in your everyday goings on. Okay, honor, I think, from a starting point, it requires a lot of deep thought, a lot of introspection. Having honor is important when you're dealing with other human beings for, again, your integrity. And it's not for the weak. Honor is something which requires a level of strength which is kind of unfounded. It doesn't really have a root basis, which is why, again, as we'll get into later on, I think your honor is best driven when you have faith, and you have faith that despite the situation you're in, the scenario you're experiencing, the higher power will shield you, will protect you, and will covet the fact that you are honorable with grace, okay, and protection. Um, and again, that's a very difficult thing to kind of apply, because we're very far from the time where that was largely considered to be most beneficial by most human beings. As again, I would say specifically men, I think the need to get ahead has certainly trumped the need to lead a life of honor for the majority. And I can completely understand that. We have a different society that we live in today. It's a very well, materialistic society. It's a society based on abundance, on either having or not having, and I think for most people, they want to be on the former side of that coin. We all want to have, right? We want to live a certain life. And generally, as I said, that goes towards material things for most people. But again, we all know that those aren't completely fulfilling. And oftentimes, I think if you've gotten these things without honor or through dishonorability, it can lessen the value of them. I think if you're lying, cheating, and stealing, one, you're going to put yourself in a position where you can end up in serious trouble. If you're the breadwinner of your family and you get removed from your family, you're leaving your family in a situation where they could fall into disrepute in certain standing. They could lose their house, they could lose their livelihood. All these things can happen if you choose to move through the world with dishonorability. And I think there's a bit of a difference here when we talk about doing good, because doing good is great, right? If you can go out in the world and do good and treat people with kindness and be thoughtful in your actions and do all those things, I think we understand fundamentally we want done for us, and we recognize that in order to get that, we have to give that. That alone sometimes is not completely enough. And it's not to say that there's stages, right? We all have to go through the stages of, being good, getting better. And then I would say, well, kind of the reason we're having this discussion today is because I think honorability and having honor is probably the highest marker of a human being that you could possibly have. I think it's the one thing amongst men and women which it cannot be stained, right? If you are an honorable person, your legacy, your name, your title, everything that you are, everything that you exist as it cannot be touched. It's beyond disrepute. You have conducted yourself in a manner where no one can say you cheated them, you robbed them, you lied to them, you did them bad. And I think, yeah, as a human being, that has great value. And perhaps, as I said today, I think the value of that has fallen significantly where getting ahead is concerned. Okay, we all want to have certain things, and sometimes, even marginally, a lot of us will do things which maybe in our mind doesn't seem dishonorable. I actually think honor doesn't even really come into it for most people, but I think we don't see it as being that bad, let's say. When in actuality, a lot of the actions we take towards other individuals don't always have a truly honorable basis. They're confounded in what we want and what we desire and what we need to do to get that. And sometimes that means bending the rules, telling white lies, not being wholly honorable and forthright in the way that we're going about life. So again, being good is great, but being honorable is even better. And that's not for the weak. It requires great strength, great thoughtfulness, introspection, and I guess empathy also falls into that regard as well. But it's also, I guess, having just a level of self which you are not willing to sacrifice in order for gain. Okay, that is really what we're talking about here. How much will you sacrifice of yourself, your spirit, your good energy in order to get ahead? And I think, as I said kind of a couple times in this early part of this conversation, I think there's a lot of people in modern day society, as we'll get into a bit more further down the line, that really don't have much problem sullying their honor in order to, I guess, progress and get forward. So again, doing good unto most is great, and we want to do that, but we want to also attain a higher level, which again is honorability. And I think also when it comes to you know where we are today, as far as things like war, violence, a lot of the things that we see of a combative nature in our society or in the world, I would say, which is a lot of what is mostly reported, mostly seen, especially if you've been in the UK over the last few months or anywhere in the world. A lot of the acts that happen, right, are dishonorable. A lot of killing, murdering, raping, pillaging. It's largely centered around a lack of honor between nations in that regard. When you look at some of the broader scale wars and things that are happening in the world today, so honor is important. It doesn't have much bearing on your physical standing, your stature, the material possessions you own, all these other things that I think are very important for most people. Um, honor it doesn't. Honor and these things don't intercede at all. For instance, you can look at someone who is maybe what you might describe as physically weak, but they can be imbued with great strength of honor, which again, to me, has far more valuable. I'm more willing to trust and give to someone like that than I am to someone who appears to be someone of strength, but actually isn't. They have, their vices that they're weak around. And again, this goes to everything within your personality. If you have, a ton of vices, a ton of things that you can't control within yourself, and they have a better grip over you, this will lead a more dishonorable path, because when you need to get that thing has priority over your decision making. And again, you're more likely to do something dishonorable in order to get ahead or to get that thing that you want. Maybe it's a fix of something. So honor is of great importance. You can be physically weak, still be of great honor and great strength. And that again is more powerful than anything that you can, build yourself to be in the gym or on the track or any of these places where we look at people who have a certain physical stature and don't have great honor within themselves, which again are two completely different things, right? I think one of the other things which has driven this conversation today is a lot of the societal violence, as I said earlier. And what you'll see today is, or what we're seeing today, is there's a lot more people willing to die for their pride and far less people willing to die for their honor, which again, I would say, and this is very medieval, but dying for your honor to me is the height of nobility. Um, and it's a feat that we rarely see in the modern age. People who are happy to crash out over stuff which is fairly small and trivial, but when it comes to being honorable, protecting the weak, doing good unto others, standing for something which you believe to be truly right in a world which can be quite unjust, people don't want to lay their lives down for that. But when it comes to the disrespect that they receive, they're very happy to crash out and and perhaps end their life or the life of someone else simply because their pride has been uh sent into disarray, right? Which is, I guess, a crazy way to approach things, and it doesn't really feel medieval now that I'm speaking about this in a more direct sense. And I can see almost why it's been so lost, and I think that is again largely to do with the materialistic nature of our society. And I will kind of get into this now, right? So we all want certain things, as I said previously. You might want a certain house, certain car, certain lifestyle. But the greatest thing that, as I've said, you will be in possession of in your entire life is your honor. Nothing should have more value than your honor. There is nothing that you should want more than to be an honorable person. Because, well, I think if you've listened to some of the other conversations, you'll realize or understand at least that my belief is being that honorable person will bring around all the other material trappings that you want or that you feel that you're deserving of or that you want to kind of strive towards, because that can fortify you in a faith sense and in a higher power sense, right? So your honor is one of the most valuable things, if not the most valuable thing you're in a possession of, and that has to be given the utmost importance. You cannot compromise your honor for short-term gain, for something you want now, and this goes towards discipline, right? Your honor is paramount. Okay, that is again, modern day, maybe you'll use the word integrity. That's closer to where we are today and to what we understand. I think honor, yeah, can be quite an old word, but it has more, I don't know, more grandiousness, more gravitas, I think, than the word integrity. And integrity is very business-y to me, which is cool. I think a lot of people can also appear to have integrity that don't have integrity. It can be a mask almost in some regard, whereas honor, I don't think, can be masked. It is doing what you believe is true and right in every situation, right? And the issue with honor currently is, as we've discussed already, it's very juxtaposed to the material world we live in today. So it's almost like, if I think, if you were to ask people about, where they would be if they lived a truly honorable life, they would see that as maybe a life of poverty, or a life of lack, or a life of not particularly having much, or not getting what they want because they're having to adhere to a level of standing and rule that most people aren't even looking at or aware of in the modern day society, which again I can kind of understand, right? You want to play the same game everyone else is playing, but at the same time you want to play by the same rules. You don't want to feel like you're handicapped or that you are handcuffed in any way, because, well, it just doesn't seem fair, right? And why handcuff yourself? Why not, in fact, loosen the chains? In fact, why not handcuff someone else so that you can get ahead, or tie their shoelaces together? And that is essentially what dishonorability is. It's cheating. It's not being forthright. It's not being the correct individual that you know you should be. Given the choice, I would hope that most people feel that honorability is their best state. And I think that is true for the most part. I can't speak for every person walking the face of the earth, but I think most of us don't want to be dishonorable. I think we all want to have an element of honor, but we usually will trade it. And I think that's also the difficulty we're talking about here, especially when we're describing the world as it is, which is very material. There's often a trade which is required. Will you trade your honor for this thing? Okay. And I mean, that goes into a lot of things. I haven't touched on the topic of sex, pornography, and all that stuff, but for me, that's a huge honor trade for money, a massive honor trade for financial gain. Okay, because you are putting yourself out there in a way, male or female, where you're, well, the nature of you as a being, your naked body in its most sexualized state, is visible to all around the world to see, and you're making that trade for money. And whilst again, I don't look to cast aspersions. I know what the world is. I know how difficult it is. So again, I would never cast aspersions or judgment. I don't have the right to judge anyone. It's just my opinion on things and what I would do, right? So for me, if I was to enter that line of work or approach that line of action, that would be highly dishonorable for me. That would be dishonoring myself. That would be me dishonoring the creator. That would be me dishonoring my parents also as well. And then also the trade is what kind of compounds the dishonorability, because you've gained, right? You have now something material which can make your life more comfortable, maybe make your family's life more comfortable, but it's the cost. It is always the cost in these situations. What is the cost of your honor? Can your honor be bought? Are you for sale? And I think in some element, any form of sale of honor is an element of, there's an element of prostitution about it almost, because that is your higher self, right? And if your honor can be bought, well, you're not a very trustworthy person. And in actuality, how much value to you is there if you can be bought and paid for by the highest person? So that is why your honor, again, is of great value. You have to have hard and fast lines as a human being that you just will not cross for any amount of money, for any. But in fact, the only person you should be willing to, and again, I don't even think you ever should, but is maybe your family. If you're where your family are concerned, maybe there are acts you would do that would, fall into the realms of not having honor. But in actuality, I think the nature of that will always be protected, as I said earlier, by your faith. Um, so as I was saying, so the issue is the juxtaposition between our current world we live in, the material world, and honor. Okay, they don't really mix that well. Yes, there's integrity in business. You can do things the right way, and certainly not, again, bring your name or your family's name into disrepute because you've always opted to act in a way which is forthright. But again, having honor and attaining those material things at a certain scale in the modern world is quite difficult. And I think most people, young people, middle-aged people, there's a desire to have a certain lifestyle, right? Um, and that goes into, I guess, the influence of others as well. So the people that we admire, the people that we have respect for, the people who we maybe hold in high standing and high esteem. Um, Maybe they're revered for something they do, something they're good at, or maybe in some cases just something they have, right? So in that regard, we will often look at that person and look at what they have and where they've got to in life, and that will be the standard for us. So if X person is willing to do X and they have Y, then there's nothing wrong with me doing it because they've managed to do it and they're where they are where they're at. And if they've done it, then surely there's nothing wrong with it. I have respect for them. They seem to be living a good lifestyle. Why shouldn't I also indulge in, maybe again, it's not immediately seen as dishonorability, but why shouldn't I engage in this element of dishonorability that they're doing? Maybe it's, I see a lot of these like multi-level marketing schemes now at the moment. A lot of people who market these trading courses or crypto courses where they don't really know what they're talking about. They're influencing people to get into an area of business which is quite volatile. And their real earning power is based on their perceived higher level of knowledge in this area, which is, again, it's quite a difficult thing to have a hold. Well, no one has a hold over the markets, right? They're quite free. They move based on factors that are unbeknownst to me, to be honest. But the reality is that person, that multi-level marketing person, is willing to sell you something based on the idea that they know what they're talking about. And the fact is, maybe they do a little bit, but they don't have control over this thing, and they're willing to push you into a space where you could potentially lose in order that they can gain. And they aren't doing it necessarily from a position of pure expertise and understanding and authority. It's more so just the visual identity of those things. So I have the car, I have the house. Maybe I don't. Maybe I rented them both. But if I rent them both and I show some charts and I show an account that has X amount of money in it, and I can get people to buy into the idea of me being this person, then I can earn money off them. What they do with their money in the market is irrelevant. And again, that is dishonorable. And there are many people out here who don't do that exactly, but they have a version of that they're into that, again, is just not very, well, it's just not honorable, right? This is, I guess, the main thing in modern day society is the people of prominence encouraging dishonorable acts as a means to progress in life, right? That is essentially what we're talking about here, because much like there's a person who's influenced to trade or do whatever the thing is that they want to do to try and earn some money based on something else they've seen someone else doing, there's also the other young entrepreneur who thinks, okay, well, I can see through the scheme, right? I know he doesn't know what he's talking about, but if I set up my thing like he has with the fake house, the rented car, the rented jewelry, I can also cheat people out of their money. And again, that's what we're talking about here is cheating, lying, and not stealing, because free will intercedes there, and no one, you're not taking money off anyone, right? But you are certainly influencing them in a manner which is dishonest in order to get from them something that they've earned for themselves, which is highly dishonorable. Okay, so what must we do? Okay, what must we do in this instance? Because I don't think any of us truly want to be dishonorable, as I said, but we all want to get ahead, we all want to gain. So you must fortify yourself against abject dishonorability, even when it appears you may lose out on something or be on the weaker end of the deal or not be able to get ahead to that person that you see living the lifestyle that you think they're living. Because a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times that person isn't truly living that life. It's more the image of that life that they've created for themselves. But in order to, I guess, truly get to where you want to be and to live a peaceful life and to live in an element of a blessed state, not using dishonorability to get there is of paramount importance. And most people don't. I think most people will accept maybe a more standard lifestyle in order to, not ruffle any feathers, not cheat anyone, not do anything. We'll work a 9 to 5. And this is way more honorable, okay? Working 9 to 5, which pays you a decent wage and allows you to live a certain lifestyle and enjoy life, have a family, do all the other things you want to do. That's a way more honorable thing than the person who has a supercar in the house but has cheated loads of people to get it. And even the person who built their business honorably and at a certain point had to do something dishonorable to get to that next stage, there's always a point, and I guess you could say it's a level of evil or a level of the devil. There's always a point where that thing will attack you. That thing is going to attack you and it's going to test your resolve. It's going to say, okay, you're doing good. Things are going well, or maybe they're not going well, and you want to get ahead. Are you willing to go down that road to what seems like the better future in expense of your honor? And I would say to you that it's never worth the trade. The trade is not worth doing, because at the end of the day, you have to sleep with your own self. You have to live with those decisions. You have to be in the body which commits those acts. And I guess in some element there, you're corrupting your spirit. You're putting yourself in a position that maybe you can't come back from, because if you do one thing, what else will you do? And especially when you see the gain off the back of that, it's only going to, well, I guess, influence you to do it more down the line, which I think is kind of what we're evolving. It can become a spiral, a downward spiral of not being honorable because you know what you can get out of it, because, most people either don't care too much about honor, or it just doesn't come into their way of thinking, right? So if you can be dishonorable, you can almost get ahead. And I think, to add myself into this equation here, whilst I've never been a dishonorable person, right, there is certainly an element of myself which hasn't always been completely honorable. And I would say less so in a material or business sense, but certainly in terms of my dealings with other people, family, friends, just wanting to get certain things, do certain things, having an element of self which has maybe been on the verge of pushing the boundaries of that simply to get what I want in a scenario. I'm not devoid of that. Okay, I've certainly been guilty of that previously, not maybe not in the last, anytime recently. I've certainly had a much better sense of morality, over the last 15, 20 years perhaps. But as an individual, I can't, I'm not perfect. Okay, and I certainly cannot say I've always been an honorable person. Today, it's certainly something which I prioritize. I would never want to bring myself into an element of dishonorability. However, I recognize that things will attack me. Things will attack me and present things to me that seem good, seem nice for now. And maybe I can do something that's going to put me in that position. But the reality is my spirit, my soul it's not worth compromising. Okay. I hold that in much higher regard than any physical thing I can possess, or that that dishonorability could get me. So at the end of the day, I have to lead with honor at all times. And also it allows me to present a standing to people which I think most people aren't willing to go down. They're not willing to show themselves to be that level of honorable. We talked about, your pride earlier, and what people are willing to die for. I would touch on wood right now, but you certainly don't want to be in a position where you have to. But given the scenario, my honor is a sword that I would happily fall on, because I know what the value of that is. I know what the true nature of that is for human beings. That is almost everything. That is, as I said, it's one of the greatest things you're in possession of is your honor. It is what connects you to the higher power in a lot of ways, is your honor. Not entirely. We can still be connected to the higher power without completely unsullied honor, right? But having that honor is one of the quickest routes to connecting to the higher power. If he can see the honor within you, he can see himself within you. And I think that is largely what we're discussing here, is your holiness, your godliness. How much of that are you willing to protect, because you were made in the image of him? And that's very important. And I think today, I guess, for most people, that's not given a lot of credence or importance with our life, especially when it comes to material things. That's largely what we're talking about here, is how much of our holiness will we trade to have the trappings of a certain lifestyle here on this plane. So again, I guess leading on to this next point, which is kind of what I've discussed already. God will always see your honor, and this creates a figurative protective shield. I would say, speaking from personal experience, in trying to go above and beyond on the statement of honor, I feel the protection. I feel the shield. There's many scenarios where things could have gone bad for me, or they might have been going bad, and I feel like my honor has saved me because my desire between myself and the creator is to always do good. And I think he knows that, he understands that, he accepts that as part of me. He knows I'm not perfect and that, I'm corruptible, but at the same time, he very much, well, I don't know what the word would be. I cannot speak for his emotions or feelings towards me, but I would say, on an earthly standing, he has respect for the fact that I desire to be honorable. I try to be honorable. I strive every day to maintain honor in every standard and mode of living that I can. And that, I guess, is not something that a lot of people are willing to do, right? I think most of us will happily just accept dishonorability if it means we can get ahead. So, whilst you may not win in the moment, your honor will eventually prove to be your greatest weapon and saving grace. As I said to you a second ago, that's literally the statement right there. Okay, whilst it doesn't always feel like you're getting the better end of the bargain, or you're being uplifted or winning in a scenario, essentially your honor is highly protective. It creates fortune for yourself that you can't really quantify. Okay, that is completely unbeknownst to you. And I discussed this in the episode about discipline, about how much you're willing to put out there percentage wise. And that goes towards honor. I think honor and discipline are very much connected because you have to be disciplined to have honor. Um, and I guess when you can do that, you were putting yourself in a higher standing than most. You were essentially saying, "I'm not willing to corrupt myself," and for that reason, it becomes a weapon. It becomes a shield. Also, it's like a shield and a sword. It's a saving grace, and that protects you. That protects you from the ills of the world. And we're nearing the end of this conversation. Thought it would be a bit longer than this, but I've managed to type a lot of it very neatly. And I think one of the other things which is key here is kind of those wins and losses as I described them. So your honor must compel you not to seek revenge, but allow the natural order of the universe to play out. Okay, a lot of us speak to karma, the natural order, the way things are supposed to be, yin and yang, the right and the wrong. And I think in those terms, honor is very important. You cannot expect things to play out in your favor in the long run if you are going to choose a dishonorable path. You have to also understand that that dishonorable path will catch up to you. It most definitely will. I mean, there's no way you can think that you're going to get away with cheating, stealing, lying, and robbing and doing all the negative things in the world, and that's never going to find you. Okay, it absolutely will. And usually in some cases, takes a while, but in other cases it won't even take that long. And I'm not talking about the police coming to your door to take you away, because if you're doing illegal activities, that's just par for the course. And I think most criminals, career criminals, accept that as part of the lifestyle that they're living, right? However, if you were dishonorable in a truly human way, separate from the law, that will catch up to you in a way which is much more painful and ultimately will be something that you will find it very hard to come back from. Now, everyone is redeemable, right? There's no position in life where you cannot pull it back. Okay, it doesn't matter who you are, what you've done. Everyone is salvageable, redeemable in the eyes of the creator. However, that bar, that how far you are down the well of dishonorability will determine how much is required of you to get back on an even standing and even footing with your maker. And I think that is largely the difficult bit for people who are in that lifestyle. They feel like maybe they're so far down the hole of living that dishonorable living or life, I should say, um that they just don't see the value in turning it around. Why turn it around? I've got the earthly things I need, I've got the material things I need, family's largely taken care of. Why should I now endeavor to be good and honorable when I've already done so many terrible things? And as I said, there's always a way back, and there's always a way back when you desire to to understand who you are, where you come from, and what made you. And I think that is kind of the connecting factor when it comes to breaking the chains of dishonorability, gaining your integrity, and being of service to humanity. Okay, those are the things that you're going to have to really put in place and to understand for yourself if you're going to break your dishonorable ways. And I think with that as well, there's an understanding, or there needs to be an understanding, that not everyone feels the same duty as you do. If you're an honorable person, not everyone feels that duty and honor. And I think if you are someone who maybe you don't use the word honor, as I said, it's quite an old word, but if you are someone who feels that need for absolute integrity in all scenarios, be fortified in that. Never feel like there's a need to drop that guard in order to get ahead or to just avoid a situation. As I said, that's a sword that you can die on. I'm not gonna say happily, but comfortably. I don't know what the word is for that. Dying, it's scary, right? It's still a very scary concept. But at the end of the day, if you are dying for our honor, that's noble. Okay, again, another old word. It's a very noble thing to do, and I think you can be a great example to the world. And that can sometimes, that's your legacy, right? If you're able to uphold that level of standing and honor within yourself, it is profound. It has a profound effect on you, on the people around you, on a lot of aspects of life. If you can uphold yourself and try to meet that standard, it's like a Jesus-like standard almost. Very difficult to attain. Again, you're always going to fall short. Flesh and blood is very corruptible, and you're never going to be the perfect individual, and we have to accept that. But certainly, again, we have to try to endeavor to be that in the modern world. Okay, and I guess we'll leave it with this, and these are the things that you will find are protected, shielded, and coveted if you can maintain a life which is fortified by honor. And again, it's not an easy thing to do, certainly is worthwhile, but if you can use your honor, these aspects of yourself will be wholly protected, okay, by something which I don't have much understanding of, but certainly I have experienced for myself. So one is your spirit, okay? If you can be honorable, your spirit will be protected hugely, largely by your own actions, to be honest. Okay, that's largely down to you. That's not really the higher power in the sense that we're kind of been discussing here. If you have honor, your spirit will be protected by yourself, by your own grace for the humanity you have, and not wanting to compromise your humanity. Again, that's all down to you. Another one that will be protected is your credibility. Okay, if you decide to be honorable, your word will be true and have honor in a way where not many people can argue with you, can challenge you, can bring you into disrepute, because you have credibility. Your word, your credibility will be of a standing that no one can even try to bring down, because you lead with honor, right? So your word it's not gospel, certainly not. We're not going to put it in that level, but it is almost like earthly gospel, because your credibility is so strong, because your honor is paramount. That's the thing that you have the most value behind, right? Third thing is love. Okay, if you choose to be honorable as an individual, your love will absolutely be protected. Okay, let's say in a scenario which isn't perfect, but if you meet someone who you have a good relationship with, you lead with honor, you lead with that honorable love, and ultimately it doesn't pan out, the creator will see that, and he will protect that love, and you will see the benefit of that perhaps further down the line in your future relationships, or in the love of your family, the love of the people around you, the love that the creator has set around you to protect you, right? Fourth thing that will be protected, and it goes kind of to the other things as far as spirit, credibility. I think all these things fall under this one thing, right? But I've put it in there separately, and that is your karma. Okay, so if you lead with honor, understandably, I think that equation is very simple. Your karma, your yin and your yang, your do unto others to do unto yourself, is absolutely protected, because you have not wronged anyone. So there is no need for karma to come chasing after you if you are honorable. And that is, I think, something, again, on a modern day angle, I think most people understand, right? We want good karma. How do you get good karma? You be honorable in the world, and that will take care of itself. And the last thing that will be protected through honor is your fortune. If you are someone who is going to cheat, lie, steal, or do any of those types of things that are dishonorable to create fortune, that fortune largely has no value, right? However, if you can build your fortune through abject honorability in all situations, regardless of what's happening around you, your fortune will absolutely be protected, and no one will be able to take that from you, because you are someone who deals with, we're talking business here in a certain way, on a level of integrity that cannot be uh it cannot be removed or taken away, because again, you've led with honor. You have put yourself in a standing that, again, most people don't even try to approach to get near. So if you can do that, if you can lead with honor, your spirit, your credibility, your love, your karma, and your fortune, those 5 things will all be protected, and that's all by your own actions. Okay, the creator will reinforce you, like I said, with that sword and that shield, but ultimately it is your desire to not bring yourself down, which will keep you above everything else. Okay, not everyone else, but everything else, as far as what can attack you in this modern world. That's episode 9, Faith and Logic now. And we discussed honor in great detail. I hope that was, of at least of interest or helpful to you. Again, you don't have to like, comment, share, or subscribe here. Not required. But if you think, again, this is a conversation which could be of value to someone that you're close to, I would like you to send it to them. Hopefully they're not a dishonorable person. If they are, then let's try and save their soul, right? I'll see you guys in episode 10. Thank you.